Another weekend of college football is in the books, and it was once again a fantastic weekend. Today, I'm going to be sharing my 10 winners from week 6 of the college football season. Before we get to today's video, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. I'll be posting videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. Also, drop a comment down below and let me know who you think the biggest winner was from this weekend. There were so many great games from this weekend slate, so there may have been a few teams that I missed. So I'd love to hear which team impressed you guys the most. We'll kick off this video with Tennessee, who went into Death Valley and knocked off number 25 LSU 40-13. This game was never even really close, as Tennessee led by 13 at the end of the first quarter, and they led by 16 points at the end of the half. Hendon Hooker was fantastic for Tennessee, as he threw for 250 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while adding more than 50 yards on the ground. Through the first month of the season, you can make the case that Hendon Hooker has been one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. As a team, the Vols rushed for over 260 yards with 2 rushing scores. Although their offense was impressive as they put up 40 points and over 500 yards, it was their defense that really stood out in this game. They held the Tigers to only 13 points and 2 touchdowns. On the ground, LSU rushed for only 55 yards on 28 attempts. Tennessee's already had a pretty solid start to their season, but this was by far their best win. Regardless of how good LSU is, going into Death Valley when LSU's a ranked team is never an easy task, especially beating them by 27 points. Not only is Tennessee a legit team in the SEC, they're a legitimate team in the playoff hunt. After UCLA started 4-0 to begin the season, I wasn't all that high on them. They hadn't played anybody, and I didn't think that they were going to be a solid team in the Pac-12. Well, they've officially proved me wrong in back-to-back weeks. This weekend, they picked up their biggest win of the season and probably one of the more impressive wins among all Pac-12 teams this season. The Bruins knocked off number 11 Utah 42-32. This was a game dominated by the UCLA offense as they totaled over 500 yards of offense. Dorian Thompson-Robinson continues to add to his Heisman campaign as he completed 18-23 passes for 300 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. He also added a touchdown on the ground as well. Zach Charbonnet continues to impress as one of the best running backs in the conference as he had 200 yards on the ground with a rushing score. This is a UCLA team that has now picked up back-to-back wins against top 25 teams, and they've climbed all the way up to number 11 in the entire country. They're 3-0 in conference play, and they're one of only 2 teams in the entire Pac-12 that remains undefeated. I had no expectations for this Bruin teams to start the season, but this is an offense and a defense that looks like they're more than capable of making a deep run in the Pac-12. I was hesitant with their victory last week against Washington, but the way they handled Utah with ease really makes me think that UCLA is here to stay. After losing 2 straight games to begin the season, Notre Dame has responded with 3 consecutive victories, and this past weekend, they had arguably their best win of the entire season. In a neutral site game in Las Vegas, Notre Dame took down number 16 BYU 28-20. After trailing through 1 quarter, Notre Dame outscored BYU 25-14 over the final 3 quarters. Drew Pine played his best game with Notre Dame as he completed 22 of 28 passes for 3 passing touchdowns. As a team, the Irish rushed for nearly 250 yards on the ground. BYU had one of the better offenses in all of college football and was led by one of the more underrated quarterbacks in Jaron Hall. Well, Notre Dame held him to only 120 yards through the air with an interception. For the game as a whole, Notre Dame held BYU to only 13 first downs, held them to 3 of 9 on third downs, and less than 200 total yards of offense. This was also a game completely dominated by the Notre Dame offense as they had the ball for more than 40 minutes. The Irish had 2 ugly losses to begin the season, but they've now won 3 in a row, and it looks like their season is slowly beginning to turn around. Who would have thought that you would have to beat Kansas to prove you're a legitimate team? Well, that's what TCU did in their 38-31 victory on the road at Kansas. The Horned Frogs, who entered the week as the number 17 team in the country, proved that they're one of the best teams in the entire Big 12. Max Duggan showed that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation and should be a Heisman contender, as he threw for over 300 yards with 3 passing touchdowns while rushing for over 50 yards with a rushing score. Quentin Johnston showed that he's one of the best wide receivers in the entire nation as he caught 14 passes for over 200 yards with a touchdown. touchdown. This was a crazy back and forth game that honestly could have gone either way, but TCU was able to pull up the big stops on defense and score the big touchdowns on offense when it mattered most. Sonny Dykes, who is in his first year as head coach with TCU, has them 2-0 in conference play and 5-0 overall in the season. The Horned Frogs are one of only 2 teams left in the entire Big 12 that are undefeated on the year. Like I mentioned, who would have thought that beating Kansas would prove your legitimate team, but TCU showed that they're a force in the Big 12 this season. It's always a good time when you beat your rival. It's an even better time when you beat them 49-0. Texas took care of business against Oklahoma this week in one of the biggest lopsided victories in the history of the rivalry. For the game, the Longhorns scored 49 points, had 34 first downs, and had nearly 600 yards of total offense. The defense was just as good, holding Oklahoma to only 11 first downs, including less than 200 yards of total offense. Quinn Ewers is starting to show that he's one of the top quarterbacks in the entire Big 12. He threw for 300 yards with 4 passing touchdowns in the biggest game of his career. Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the country, added 130 yards on the ground with 2 rushing scores. Regardless of just how bad Oklahoma currently is, anytime you're able to beat your rival by 49 points is truly remarkable. It's also another thing when you hold them to 0 points. This was a beatdown via Texas that Oklahoma fans are going to have nightmares about for decades to come. After a very rough start to the season, Nebraska has all of a sudden rattled off back-to-back victories and is currently sitting at 3-3 on the season and tied for first in their division at 2-1 in conference play. They took down Rutgers by only 1 point, but hey, a win is a win. Casey Thompson threw for 230 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. On defense, the Cornhuskers held Rutgers to only 14 first downs. They also forced 3 turnovers that proved to be the difference maker in the game. Ever since they fired Scott Frost, this Cornhuskers team has looked a lot different. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to make a run in the Big 10, which they actually still can. Like, there's an actual chance that Nebraska still somehow plays in the Big 10 title game, but they've looked good the last 2 weeks, and maybe it looks like they're going to be going bowling this season after all. James Madison won their 5th consecutive game to start the season, and they're now ranked inside the top 25 of the AP poll. This is a pretty big deal considering this is the Duke's first season at the FBS level. Todd Centeio is a name that isn't getting enough recognition, as he's been one of the best group of 5 quarterbacks in the entire country. Against Arkansas State, he threw for 400 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. This James Madison offense was unstoppable as they finished with 42 points, 33 first downs, and 600 yards of total offense. I talked about this in my AP Top 25 video, but it's an absolute travesty that the Dukes can't even play in their conference title game this season, let alone play in a bowl game. I mean, there's a solid chance they finish the season undefeated, maybe even as a top 15 team, and they can't even play in a bowl game. It's a stupid rule that the NCAA has that needs to be changed. It turns out firing their head coach was the right move, as Georgia Tech picked up their 2nd consecutive victory over a pretty solid team in Duke. Coming into this game, the Blue Devils were 4-1 on the season, but Georgia Tech pulled off the victory in overtime. Jeff Sims threw for over 200 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while leading the team with 100 yards on the ground. Defensively, the Yellow Jackets were excellent as they held Duke to 6 of 17 on 3rd downs and less than 280 yards of total offense. Just like that, Georgia Tech is now in 2nd place in their division in the ACC. They're 2-1 and are just behind North Carolina, who's 2-0 in conference play. I don't know if Georgia Tech is going to continue this trend and actually make a run in the ACC, but the fact that they've won 2 games in a row is truly a miracle at this point. The previous 3 seasons, they had only 9 wins combined. Maybe all it took was them getting a brand new head coach for them to turn things around. North Carolina is now 5-1 on the season, and they're leading the way to play in the ACC title game later this season. They defeated Miami by 3 points and had a huge interception in the final seconds of the game. Drake May continues his solid 2022 campaign as he threw for over 300 yards with 2 passing touchdowns, while adding 50 yards on the ground. For some reason, North Carolina is first in their division and 5-1 on the season, but they're not ranked inside the top 25. But if they continue to win games the way they've been playing, they'll be ranked inside the top 25 in no time. We'll wrap things up with Oregon State, who had a comeback victory in the 4th quarter to take down Stanford. Oregon State entered the 4th quarter trailing by 14 points, but they outscored Stanford 18-3 to pull off the 1-point victory on the road. As if the comeback wasn't crazy enough, Oregon State had an insane play in the final minute that gave them the go-ahead touchdown that ultimately won them the game. If you were to look at this game through the first 3 quarters, this isn't really an ideal performance from Oregon State, considering Stanford is 1-4 on the season and 0-4 in conference play. But the fact they were able to come from behind and pull off the insane victory at the end is a good enough reason to have them as my final winner on today's list. Plus, Oregon State is 4-2 on the season, and they're one of the top teams in the entire Pac-12, something that you haven't been able to say in many, many years. Well, those are my 10 winners from this weekend. Which team do you think was the biggest winner overall? Was there a team who really surprised you that should have been on this list? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you love college football, this is definitely the place for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'll be posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.